Welcome to the stream. This is Rolling Swarm. Let me just check and see. Maybe this will be. Nope. We were better on the first one. Good evening. Welcome to the stream. We've got a slightly different camera angle. We've moved a few things around. So today, update 8.7 has dropped, and among a lot of new things teased by Wargaming in the notifications along with update 8.7, we've got the new Soviet Scouts, which have arrived. The newest, the fourth light tank line that goes up to tier 10. So now we've got the T-100 joining the Batchat 25T, the Sheridan, and the Vickers. So this is a Russian light tank. All of the Russian bias is there. And oh my, if there isn't just a teeny tiny bit of controversy that's going along with that. And it seems that the news article doesn't want to load for me, which is which is bueno. The main thing, alongside some of the new camouflages, there's two huge things that I want to touch upon. The purpose of this video is just to give you an overview. Move that light over there. An overview of the T-100, which is the new tier 10. The 7 and the 9 are, I mean, they're interesting, but that's what other people talk about. We're interested in tier 10 here on this channel. So the first thing I want to talk about is the rating battle changes. I have been very critical of the rating battle schema for a long time now, and this change is being implemented, I think, is a really good step in the right direction. It's going to mean that good players will have more opportunities to go up in ratings, whereas bad players will have more opportunities to go down in ratings, and that is going to improve the sorting process. That is going to improve the distribution of players in the pool by rating score. That is going to improve the the matchmaking experience of players in rating. This is a tremendously good thing that Wargaming are implementing. So straight out of the gate, huge kudos. Like, I would like there to be more things done in rating battles, but this is a great step. So big kudos there. We got some nice camos coming in. Not least of all for the new tier 10 Russian tank, and it's 5,000 gold. Holy moly, the Interceptor, the T-100 Interceptor, is all of the money. There's containers for ads. I mean, my time's more valuable than that, but whatever. And there's a couple of performance of life improvements. The main thing that's come in with this update is the new branch of tanks, and they're very nice, and they've got unique abilities, and they're quite interesting. But the main thing is this unique ability, which is the tracer shells, which only applies to the tier 9 and tier 10, to be fair. But this is, and I'm going to show you a replay that will highlight one of the ways in which this might be broken, is this new spotting mechanic. If your shot from an Object 84 or a T-100 LT hits an enemy tank, that tank will remain spotted for 20 seconds. It doesn't need to do damage. It could be a ricochet, it could be a non-damaging HE shot. As long as your shot connects with the enemy tank, they will remain spotted for 20 seconds. And that is, I hope that you're smart enough to understand how significant that could be. In situations, there's going to be a lot of times when it's not going to be game breaking or kind of inconsequential, but there's also going to be scenarios, late game 1 versus 1s, and keeping an enemy perma-spotted at range, where that mechanic, and I've said it's lopsided, and I put this on the official Discord server on Blitz. I've said this is lopsided, not as bad as ATGMs, but a tank with this mechanic versus a tank without this mechanic has got a really significant advantage if they can play it well. Now, it's nowhere near as bad as ATGMs, but it still is very powerful in the right situation, and used correctly. and I'm personally very interested to see if this is going to shake up the tournament meta at all. We're very heavy at the moment, lots of 60 TPs, lots of IS-7s, a couple of light tanks, other heavy tanks here and there. I wonder if this is going to affect that meta. But still, remains to be seen. What I want to show you here is is some replays. As you can see, I use my free XP, which I have just sat on far too much, just to completely blitz the line, and I've got more credits than I know what to do with. So it was not an issue for me to get the line. I did use gold for the crew skills, and of course I did use gold for the premium camo on this tank, which it's 5,000 gold. It's overpriced. Probably shouldn't have done it, but it's nice looking, and I'm a bit of a sucker for the aesthetic content in this game. So here I am. Now I've played at the moment. Let me just check this out. I played 6 games in the T-100 LT. I didn't want to play any more. I didn't want to give you guys a false impression of how good the tank is. I just said, okay, I'll play a handful of games and I'll choose two of the best replays to show, just to kind of demonstrate the potential of this tank. And I've had a very good run. I've lost one. I think this is my... I mean, with so few battles, you can't take these stats as indicative relative to, like, for example, my performance in the 60 TP or any other of the other tier 10 tanks. But I've been doing well in the battles that I've had. Not least of all, I've been racking up masteries, and that's also to do with the fact that as a new tank, there are fewer battles, fewer people playing it, which means it's much easier if you've got the ability to get this tank. If you want more mastery badges on this tank, now is the time to get it. So I've been performing quite well. So let me, without further ado, let me grab those replays and show you what I'm talking about. So the first replay, and this is the first game that I played. Yeah, this is the first game that I played in this tank. And I've just noticed that there's a tiny slither of black there where the green screen isn't effective. And part of me wants to fix it, and part of me has realised that it's just maybe futile. And I think that's about as good as we're going to get. So this is my first game in the T-100 LT Interceptor. I'm just going to run you through the battle that is. We've got a few people in the chat. RGK says that the new spotting mechanic isn't terribly broken. It doesn't see it as a highlight as a tank. Yeah, the height. This is another thing. This tank has got a lot going for it. It is the fastest tier 10 light tank. It is the most camouflaged tier 10 light tank by several percentage points, both on the move and firing. It's got the highest DPM. Doesn't have the best alpha. Doesn't have the best gun depression. But you are a bit of a damage machine in this thing. I think you're pushing like 3,200. So the Chieftain Mark 6 now spotted for 20 seconds. I mean, I don't think, again, like, you're not going to see the mechanic kicking in every time. But you can see here the gun handling is pretty decent. And you can output quite a lot of damage. It reverses quite quickly. That's a good thing to bear in mind here. This tank, the reverse speed and the sort of the agility that it has with those speeds is good. And now camouflage with tanks correlates to the height of the tank. This tank is about as tall as a piece of A4 paper is wide. Does have a tendency to catch fire on the engine, not gonna lie. You can see, like, you're just very, very low slung as a tank. And you can pick up bounces. That's that second fire. And some people have been saying that the engine does pick up fires quite a lot, and I would be inclined to agree with that. But you can see, like, it's so low, and we haven't done anything special yet in this game. I mean, it's playing how you would expect a very sort of low slung HE shot for the kill, a very low slung tank to behave. But you can see, even though our fuel is damaged, we're still moving quite comfortably at 60 kilometers per hour. The gun depression is 5 degrees, which is not the best. I'm not gonna lie, it's not the best gun depression. It's one of the worst. It is the worst gun depression on a tier 10 light tank. But so far in the 6 games that I've played, and you can see here, with the premium ammunition, no issue going through the cheeks of the Jagdpanzer E-100. And that is quite a tough pen. And it's worth bearing in mind here that the M3X player in the Jaegeru and the Chieftain Mark 6 from the SPS clan, they're both 60% plus players. So this game is not versus novices. It's not a walk in the park versus white win rates. But we've done fairly well already. We've output a good amount of damage. I mean, 2,800 is well above my tier 10 average damage output. And here we've spotted up the 183. The mobility on this tank is good, very, very good, easily around the 183. And that the reload with adrenaline, you're firing your Alpha's 310. You've got a sub 5-second reload, and you'll see this in the next replay, where you can keep someone spotted for 20 seconds after you hit them. You know, in a Kolobanovsky situation. But 5.7 or 4 point something seconds. Again, premium ammunition. Even with the Jaegeru with the lower glasses angled against us downwards, we're good. But we've got the mobility, and a light tank with mobility is very, very strong because you can play the information game. And that's especially true in this tank. Now the Vickers did it, or does it in one way because it has that view range. But this tank is more mobile than the Vickers. It bounces more shots than the Vickers. And you can see, like, if I was a slower tank, I might have caused some damage there potentially from the T-54E1. Haven't. Using the mobility to just get range on the enemy. Pretty straightforward. And this tank, you can see I'm not running the speed boost consumable. I've got adrenaline, the multi-repair, and then the module, like the kind of like track repair, effectively. And I found that that's been the best setup. I mean, in 6 games, so it's a limited amount of experience. But I have found that, you know, this tank doesn't need the speed boost. It's fast enough already. Adrenaline is always good. And the multi-repair is essential. And the track repair is just great for getting out of dodge. And that's a 1. We drop the adrenaline, and in less than 5 seconds, we have another shot. The DPM on this thing is superb. The gun handling is pretty decent. There are tanks that are better. There are tanks that are worse. And you can see I'm not spotted, not spotted, not spotted, not spotted. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm spotted. Now the T-54E1, this guy is not a great player. I think he's about 40%. I checked the stats afterwards. So he's in a bit of a bind. But you can see the gun handling is fairly decent. Now look, he's still spotted, right? But at this point, we are unspotted. And this is what I want to sort of demonstrate with the shells. 1, 2, 3. Spotted. And that's the shell mechanics are working beyond the light tank camo. The light tank camo with these spotting mechanics in a 1v1 scenario are hilariously good. And we're spotted. That tank, we were unspotted, he was spotted. And you can understand, like, that mechanic is just awesome in a late game scenario. Now, our opponent might not have been the best sort of showcase for that. They were sort of out of their depth. But you can see, like, in 2 instances, with the light tank camo, with those shell mechanics, with your speed as the fastest light tank in the game at tier 10, with your highest DPM as if like the highest DPM of a light tank at tier 10, if you can get this tank to the end game healthy, you can dominate with this spotting mechanic. The spotting mechanic will give you the ability to run rings around your opponents in terms of map control. If you can keep them at range, that is, if they close in for the brawl, that's not going to play into your favor, of course, obviously, but your DPM then will. So it's a very interesting tank. Like, you're quite happy in the late game to be in a 1-to-1 brawl, and you're quite happy in the late game to be in a 1-to-1 sniping match. So this tank is, for me at least, this game exemplifies, like, it is superb in the late game if you can get it there in one piece. And this was my first game in the tank. I think this is my highest profit in one tank in the new mechanics because of all the awards. Without a birthday, by the way, but with running boosters. And you can see one shot missed, one shot bounced, good connection ratio, and 6 kills. Didn't quite get the Racine. You can't have it every way, but you can see just like in terms of medals, like that's where the money was. Everything else was just really not there at all. So that's the first game, and I think that really sort of exemplifies, you know, in a late game scenario. Well, one, it shows you how good the tank is. That was my first time using the tank, so I was not familiar with any of its mechanics in terms of speed, terrain resistance, traverse speeds, gun handling. It was all sort of new to me, as new as any tank can be at this point in my sort of Blitz career. But it was a very comfortable ride, and let me just actually. Well, I can't show you, but basically the two of the enemy players were 60% plus. So it was the teams were balanced. It wasn't that me coming up, and sometimes you do get that where you come up against a team of below average players and you do very well, and it might not be because the tank is very good, and it might not be because you played very well. It's just because the enemy played poorly. But in that particular match, like, I think I played a good game, but I think that this tank is the asset that carried me. And so then in this second game, which I want to show you, which is the 6th game that I played. So the game that you just saw was the first game I played. And this game is the one that I played most recently. Weeb Tanker 587. No, I'm an atheist actually, so go figure. We've got Mike Fierro, Dwarf NZ, Yusuf Draws, No Panic. No Panic asks a good question, like what's going to work best, camo or view range? It really depends on the situation. You're not going to be seeing as far as a Vickers, or maybe even some of the medium tanks, but you are going to be spotted much less earlier, and so I think this one, I think you'll probably get the drop on most people with the camo rating on this thing, but it really depends on the context. But why I'm showing you this replay is because this shows you exactly how powerful the spotting mechanic was good in the last game. Now the 907 spotted for 20 seconds. I mean, you can pay attention to it. You can see him on the map for the next 20 seconds. Now we've pulled the shot out from the 60 TP. Watch this. At 6:09, we've hit the 60 TP. Now we've got a less than a 5-second reload. We hit him again within like 15 seconds of him getting unspotted. We hit him again. Now, in normal world, because he's at 360 meters and he is outside, no one can spot him. If you look at the position of our teammates, no one is coming around the corner to spot him. We are keeping him perma-spotted with the shell mechanic. I mean, he's blind firing in the bush, which is admirable. So from 6:09 to 5:33, so I mean like 35 seconds. He was unable to get unspotted, unable to get out of position, and was farmed for 1900 hit points. If we didn't have the shell mechanic keeping him spotted, he would have been okay. He would have been fine. He would have pulled back around the corner and he would have been unspotted. He would have taken maybe 2 hits from us. 3 if I got a lucky blind shot in. But because we could just keep him perma-spotted with the shell mechanic, it meant that there was nothing he could do and we just burned him down. And this is where this mechanic is super broken. Not super, no, this is super broken. Because nothing in the game was ever balanced with that potential in mind. The armor at the 60TP, the layout of the map, the distances between the Castilla and the windmill, all of the potential variables and metrics in this game that were applicable to that situation were not balanced out with this shell tracing mechanic in mind. And that's why it's similar to the ATGMs, because it's kind of broken. It's very situational. But if you can get a scenario like that out, you are laughing, which is why it was versus that 60TP. And the 60TP, as you should all well and know, is an extremely OP tank. And here, I mean, I've got some struggling with the gun depression a little bit. It's this tank, 15 degrees of gun elevation, 5 degrees of gun depression. Me with my, and you'll notice that the T-100, the enemy T-100, can't fire because it's underwater. So I am just quite happy here, and he'll do the noble thing and drown himself out. And that is that second replay. So the first replay showcased how you can keep an enemy spotted and get the drop on them with the spotting mechanic, albeit at admittedly quite close range. The second game showcases like you can keep an enemy perma-spotted in a vulnerable position even if they were technically able to get unspotted without the mechanic. There was not a lot that 60TP could do other than fall back, and even then, like, I would have been able to get more shots into them than otherwise would have been the case. And that's a very, very tough scenario. And I mean, the 60TP is not a bad player. Like, they're, I mean, pretty better than average, I would say. Average is 49%. I mean, this person has played at a slightly above average level. And they didn't do anything wrong. There was just nothing that they could do versus the T-100. So overall, my feelings about the T-100 are, at the moment, it is extremely strong as is. I mean, it's very flat. It's a difficult thing to hit. I mean, it's mostly track from the side. So heat and HE you'll absorb quite well. It's got the strongest, it's got 210 millimeters on the front of the turret. It's got a really aggressive armor profile. The camo's great. The gun handling is decent. The DPM is the best in any tier 10 light. The spotting mechanic really can work in your favor many, many times. Weeb Tanker 587 asks if I can show the armor from first person preview. I don't know what that is. Sorry. That's the armor. Well, I mean, he could have. The issue is, like, the 60TP in the last game had three choices to avoid. Well, no, 2 choices to avoid my fire, which was either go back to the spawn, which is not ideal for a number of reasons, or to drop down towards C, which is also not ideal. There was no other way out of that scenario for the 60TP, which is unfortunate. which is very, very unfortunate. Yeah, so Yusuf, the rate of fire is insane, and the camo is really, really great. And also the gun depression is the limiting factor on this tank. I mean, 5 degrees of gun depression is a hamstring, and it can really catch you off guard if you're not paying attention to it. And I think in comp, that is what might hold this tank back, is that, okay, it's got the spotting mechanic, it's got great speed and view range, doesn't have the alpha of a Sheridan, doesn't have the gun depression of a Vickers, it doesn't even have the alpha of a Vickers. Okay, it's got great rate of fire, but that is really not that important on a light tank in a comp scene. I'm interested to see if there's going to be any tournament teams that try and make a go of this in the meta. I would love to see this tank and the mechanic become meta. Like, as much as I think the mechanic is OP and a little bit broken, I do think that it could be quite interesting in terms of comp dynamics. I just think that in a public match, if you have a very good player in this tank, I'm not a very good player, I'm a decent player, but I'm not very good. If you have an extremely good player in this tank, they can really leverage that mechanic to their full advantage. So yeah, it's a solid tank. If you've got the free XP and the credits to get it, I would fully recommend you do it. I mean, I've played some pretty decent games. I've aced 4 out of 6. The rest of the line is okay. I mean, this tank is not a carry monster. Looks a bit like, I put a meme on the main channel. Looks a bit like the Dwayne Rock Johnson doing the people's eyebrow with its asymmetrical turret, shall we say. But this tank it's okay. It's nothing brilliant. The Object 84 is good. I haven't really got the hang of it yet, but this is one of the better tier 9 tanks. And if there's ever a tier 9 comp, for sure you can expect to see this in it. It's got some great stats behind it, but we're not super interested in this. My recommendation for you is, if you've got the opportunity to go for the T-100 LT now, that you should absolutely do it. It's very, very, very strong as a tank. It reminds me a bit of the Sheridan. Mechanic aside, just the main stats in focus, in that it probably will get nerfed in the next couple of months. There'll be some tweaks, not huge changes to the base stat line, but it will get kind of reined in a bit. But for now, the T-100 LT is probably as good as it's going to get for a long time. And this mechanic, I don't know. I think this mechanic will probably stay. I don't see Wargaming pulling this mechanic in. I don't see this mechanic being disruptive or unpopular enough on a larger scale to get it cancelled like the ATGM was. But I do think if you are a player with a decent head on your shoulders, or if you're a good player, or you can use the little bit of IQ that God gave you, you will have such tremendous success with this tank, particularly in the first couple of weeks when people don't really understand how broken the 20-second spotting is. So I hope you've enjoyed. This has been a very, very short, not that short, we've bled on to half an hour, but it's been this relatively short video for me, just recapping the LT-100T, the new Soviet light. Rolling Swarm recommends this tank. You should get it ASAP before it gets nerfed. Anyways, that's me signing out for now. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, guys.